Ethan was only 10, yet he carried a quiet weight that most children his age never knew. His days passed in silence, the kind that echoed more loudly than noise. His parents were always busy with work, and though they loved him, their presence felt distant, like stars shining but too far to touch. At school, Ethan blended into the background, a shadow in the corner, rarely noticed, rarely called upon. Loneliness had become a companion he never asked for, but somehow always found beside him. On the day the storm came, the sky opened with a fury that rattled the small suburban town. The wind bent trees into painful arches, and rain lashed against windows like sharp fingers trying to get inside. Ethan sat by his bedroom window, chin resting on his knees, watching the storm sweep across the world. He wondered, as he often did, if anyone else felt as invisible as he did. The storm's roar seemed to echo the storm inside him, wild, confused, and restless. When morning came, the world outside looked battered but calmer, as if exhaustion had followed the night's rage. Ethan slipped into his boots and stepped outside, the air heavy with the smell of wet earth and broken branches. As he walked through the yard, he noticed something small near the hedge. It was a bird, its tiny body trembling, one wing awkwardly folded beneath it. Its feathers were matted, its breathing faint but determined. Ethan crouched down, heart racing. He had never held something so fragile before. The bird looked like a piece of the storm itself, left behind and forgotten. For a moment, Ethan hesitated. He was just a boy, what could he possibly do? His hands shook as he reached out, his breath catching as the bird's eyes fluttered weakly open. There was no one else around, no one to tell him what to do. In that silence, he remembered his grandmother's voice from days long past. She had once told him that kindness was not about grand gestures, but about how gently we held the smallest lives in our hands. Ethan felt those words settle in his chest like a spark in the dark. Slowly, carefully, he lifted the bird, cradling it against his palms, as though it were a secret too fragile for the world. As he carried it back to the house, Ethan felt something stir inside him. It wasn't just worry for the bird, it was something else, something unfamiliar but warm. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't thinking about how invisible he was. He was thinking about how much this tiny creature needed him. Ethan found an old shoebox in the garage and lined it with a soft towel. He placed the trembling bird inside, watching as it tried to shift its broken wing but quickly gave up. Its small chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. Ethan sat beside the box, unsure of what to do next, yet unwilling to leave. He searched through the kitchen cabinets until he found some bird seeds left over from his grandmother's visits. When she used to feed the sparrows in the yard, he soaked a few pieces in water and, with trembling hands, offered them to the bird. At first it refused, turning its head away, but after a while, it pecked gently, barely enough to eat, yet enough to give Ethan hope. For the first time in weeks, Ethan felt like he mattered. Each morning before school, he checked on the bird. After classes, he hurried home to sit beside it, speaking softly, as if his words might soothe the pain. His parents noticed his sudden devotion, but didn't intervene. They seemed relieved that he had found something to occupy his heart. But caring for the fragile creature wasn't easy. Some days, the bird seemed weaker, its breaths thin as whispers, and Ethan would cry silently at night, afraid it might not live to see the morning. He doubted himself, wondering if he was making things worse. When he tried to ask neighbors for advice, a few shook their heads and told him it was useless. Nature has its way, one said. Sometimes it's better to let go. Those words weighed heavily on Ethan. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, torn between despair and determination. He was just a boy, small and inexperienced. Could he really change the fate of something so delicate? The doubts pressed against his heart like heavy stones, threatening to crush the fragile hope he carried. It was during one of these moments of doubt that his grandmother called. Ethan told her everything, his voice cracking as he confessed how helpless he felt. She listened quietly, then reminded him gently, kindness is never wasted. Ethan, even if this little bird doesn't make it, the love you give matters. It matters to the bird, and it matters to you. You are learning to carry another life in your hands, and that is a gift. Her words wrapped around him like a blanket. They didn't erase the fear, but they gave him courage. Ethan returned to the shoebox and looked at the bird. Its tiny eyes opened, meeting his gaze. For the first time, he didn't see weakness alone. He saw resilience, a quiet fight to live. And in that moment, Ethan decided he would not give up. Days turned into weeks, and Ethan's room slowly transformed into a sanctuary. The shoebox was replaced with a small cage his grandmother had once used, though Ethan kept the door open so the bird would never feel trapped. Each morning, the bird seemed a little stronger, fluttering its good wing with more energy, chirping faintly as though testing its voice again. Ethan's heart swelled with quiet joy every time he heard that fragile sound. He learned patience in those days. Healing was slow, and there were moments when progress seemed invisible. Yet, in the stillness of caring, Ethan discovered that kindness was not about instant results. It was about showing up, day after day, even when the outcome was uncertain. The bird taught him that persistence, coupled with gentleness, could create miracles unseen by those who rushed through life. Finally, one golden afternoon, Ethan carried the bird outside. The yard was filled with the smell of fresh grass, the sky wide and calm after days of steady sunshine. He set the bird down on the soft earth, his heart thudding as if it might break. The bird hesitated, shifting uneasily. Ethan whispered softly, telling it was free, that it no longer needed his hands to survive. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, with a sudden tremor, the bird spread its wings. The once broken wing now stretched beside the other, not perfect, but strong enough. With a burst of effort, it lifted into the air, its wings carrying it upward in uneven but determined strokes. Ethan watched, breathless, as the small creature rose higher and higher until it disappeared into the blue. Tears blurred his vision, but they weren't the same tears of doubt and fear he had shed before. These were tears of release, of wonder, of understanding. He realized that the bird's survival was not just about saving a life, it was about awakening something within himself. He was no longer invisible. His hands, his care, his persistence had mattered. That night, as he lay in bed, Ethan thought about what his grandmother had said. Kindness, even when uncertain, was never wasted. In helping the bird heal, he had discovered his own strength, his own ability to touch the world in small but profound ways. The bird had flown away, but it had left behind a lesson etched deeply in Ethan's heart. How we treat the smallest, most vulnerable lives reflects who we are. And for the first time, Ethan felt that who he was might just be enough. Kindness is often quiet, unnoticed, and fragile, yet it is the very thing that defines our humanity. Ethan's story reminds us that even the smallest acts of compassion can heal not only another life, but our own hearts as well. Every choice we make to care, to protect, to show gentleness creates ripples that shape the world in ways we may never fully see. Let this story encourage you to carry kindness into your own life. If this touched your heart, share it, leave your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories that inspire.